And welcome back to the second restoration video of our Meyers Manx. Now this is going to be a two-part video. The first part is just going to be crapping on here, and then we'll actually shoot out to the second part of the video, which I shot before actually, with me in the yard doing some work on the vehicle. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. I've been sanding back the body for quite some time, quite a few months actually. The problem obviously being is that anyone who's familiar with the Meyers Manx is that while there's not a lot of straight panels on it, so sanding's a very long and tedious project because you obviously want to keep, when you're using a machine sander in particular, you want to get the paint off, but you don't want to lose your lines because fiberglass can be a bit soft, especially when it's over 40 years old, about 45 years old. You don't want to start just boring into fiberglass because then obviously you've got to try and fill it and all the rest of it. I have since found out that you can actually buy a garnet on the market for sandblasting, which is a shredded plastic, which makes the job a hell of a lot easier. Had I known about it before starting the sanding down process, I probably would have skipped it, spent the money on buying just a sandblaster and a couple of bags of this garnet and just sandblasted the vehicle down. Unfortunately I didn't, so que sera, sera. If you are at that point where you're about to do a tear down on a fiberglass body, and let's face it, there is a lot of fiberglass bodied cars out there, save yourself the headache, go buy this garnet. You just go see a local paint shop or sandblaster guy. It's a shredded plastic garnet. It's apparently very soft, very good fiberglass, and for the few extra dollars you're going to spend buying it, you're going to save yourself a fortune in actual back-breaking work. So, thank you very much for watching. Let's get on to the video. Welcome back to our second video in the restoration of a Meyers Manx. As you can see, we're doing the rub down process. We've already done the tear down. We didn't show that on video because it's something we actually did some time ago. And obviously we're not going to show the whole rubbing down of the car. I mean, this is back-breaking work. This is about day 5 of rubbing down. And as you can see, I mean, most of it's almost all done, but it is very back-breaking work. And the reason why is if you had a metal car, you'd probably sandblast it, or you could do it pretty much all with random orbital sander, because most metal cars have just got a very flat body. Where these things, Meyers Manxes, they're all curves. There's very few flat points. So what we've done as much of the flat stuff as we can with a random orbital. The rest of it we've had to do with one of these, a little detail sander. And in fact, this is the Bosch PMF 180E. It's a little, what they call a multi-tool. And as far as multi-tools go, multi-tools are a piece of shit. But as a detail sander, it's a great tool. Because you've got to get into these corners, and if doing it by hand will take forever. As you can see, this is all just curves. There's lots of curves. And this just, even along here, where you can see I've actually sort of pitted it a bit as I've gone along. And this is why I haven't rubbed it all the way back in some places, because I'm going to have to go along later with a hand block sander and actually block it back. You see where it's sort of pitted as we tried to sand into the curves. And that's the thing when you do these sort of projects, you've got to have the time. You just got to take your time and do it right, because if you don't, you'll screw the whole job up. And one of the reasons why we've taken it all the way back, or we're going to take it all the way back, is because these cars were built back in the 60s and the 70s, and so they're old. They're getting on 40, 50 years old, and they've been changing hands time and time again. Many owners have had this car. I mean, I've had this car about 10 years now. I couldn't tell you how many owners had it before that, because it didn't come with a history. But if we'd just done a very light rub back and a respray, which is a trick you can do if you want to just make a car change colour, you'd miss things. You'd miss things like this. Under here, when we rubbed it back, we found this has got stress fractures. There's stress fractures on the vehicle. This is very common in fiberglass to get these sort of stress fractures. You know, they've been probably driven very hard, because these vehicles were designed as an off-road vehicle. You can see holes that have been refilled by previous owners where they've had things like tail lights and maybe other fixtures. You know, there's literally holes all over this vehicle. It looks like, you know, someone's taken to it with a machine gun in many places, where various people have obviously modified and repaired and done work on it. And so by rubbing it all the way back, we can re-glass it. You can see actually just down here where there was a hole, that hole originally actually had body filler in it, and we've pushed the body filler out. We've now glassed it up, so it's now being re-glassed. Again, you can see here where this is a very rough job and it will be fined up before it's finished, but where the rear suspension comes through and damaged the vehicle, and we've of course now done a basic glass up. We'll sand that back nicely and we'll probably refinish it again just to make sure it's right. And of course, if you notice around the vehicle, you'll see where we've added some extra glass coverage, and that's sort of in these areas where I've actually got a bit too deep. I've ripped it back. Because it is old glass, it tends to feather once it's been ripped up with a sander, so we've had to reseal it.
Can't.
And again, you can see where there's been damage on the front, where they've patched and refilled holes where things like the front suspensions obviously come through and damage the vehicle. And again, you can see lots of fracturing of the fiberglass. You can see where there's a lot of stress fractures which have to again be sealed up and fixed. And of course, we're going to do this as a web series. So we're going to take you through the whole process. You know, we're starting off with the body first, then we're going to move on. We're going to get the floor done. We've got a floor over there, which we're going to have to get cut down because, as I explained in the last video, these are actually on a shortened Volkswagen floor base. And then, of course, we've got a motor that we've got to re-tidy up. We've got a 1600 twin port motor. We're going to tidy up. We're going to dress it up. And we're going to go through the whole process in a series of videos. Of course, we're going to shortcut some parts because, let's face it, 5 days of sanding, you don't really want to sit down and watch 5 days of sanding, especially if it's smeared up. It just looks terrible. And I can assure you, it's back-breaking work. So thank you very much for watching this episode, and we'll see you next time.